Welcome to Thursday, or as we like to call it around here, Friday Eve. And my goodness, I don't know if we jinxed it. Maybe I jinxed it. Maybe it's my fault that I said that, we're done with winter. Because it seems the last 3 or 4 days, I get up in the morning and I look out the window and there's clouds, there's sun, there's a sunrise. And I'm thinking, all right, going to be a nice day today. And then by the time I get to the radio station here at Young Tower at the corner of Roby and Young, it's a blizzard, and it's doing it again today. Oh, can we call the month of at least the weather for the month of March miserable yet? Because we're almost done. It's almost April, folks, and we're looking at snowstorms. Now the good news is, of course, that the temperatures are going to warm up later today. If it's anything like yesterday, we're going to see these flurries or these squalls or whatever you want to call them disappear, and then we'll get some warming. And yesterday, the sun's so warm now that even if we only got to a degree or two above zero, it melted, and the perspective changes, I will say. But, oh, my goodness, looking out the window right now, you'd swear it was January. Maybe we're in store for a wonderful April, right? Now, I know many of you are happy with all the precipitation that we're getting, and I understand that. We know we're in a drought. We know there was problems with the wells last year. But man, it feels like old man winter just won't let go. Anyway, it's hard to believe, folks, looking out the window, but baseball's back. Right, Major League Baseball kicking off last night with a game with the Yankees. I watched a little bit of it. We know that a fellow that used to occupy this chair is a rather large New York Yankee fan, and I know there are several of you out there that are Yankee fans as well. So baseball gets underway in earnest today with a lot of afternoon games. There's purists that will say that until the White Sox play in the afternoon that it's not the start of baseball season, but we'll watch those today. And, of course, the Toronto Blue Jays will be kicking off their season. The American League champion Toronto Blue Jays will be kicking off their season on Friday night. Now, we are going to carry the Blue Jays games here at the radio station throughout the season. However, we're also the voice of the Halifax Mooseheads, and the Mooseheads will kick off their postseason campaign on Friday night. So we're going to carry the Moose games here on the radio station on Friday and Saturday, the Blue Jays on Sunday, and on onwards and upwards depending on how the Mooseheads go. So if that is your bag, Sportsnet's got all the games, of course, if you want to watch them on television, and we're looking forward to the Jays. Can they do it again? Wouldn't that be something? And get that extra 90 feet that they missed last year and win the World Series? It all starts 162 to go. And we'll look forward to it here on the radio station, and, of course, as Blue Jay fans gather around the country to cheer on the boys in blue. 50th season this year, right? So lots of throwback stuff happening. They're back to the baby blues for some of the season, and I like the old baby blue uniforms. Still nothing from the Energy Board. Did you look at the gas price this morning? It was the same as it was yesterday and the day before. I don't think we should be surprised. Gasoline prices are in flux, right? If you're following world events, of course, it seems that every time the president of the United States or the leadership that's left in Iran speak, the oil prices fluctuate. There's no real consensus yet. If negotiations are going, who they're negotiating with, if they're stalling, if they're solidifying positions. And every time something happens, the oil price changes, which, of course, affects gasoline. But what I will say is that New York City mercantile prices are 30 cents a U.S. a gallon lower than they were on Monday. Toronto saw a big drop in their gasoline price earlier this week. Now, watching the news last night, it looks like some of that's going to come back today. New Brunswick, which, of course, is a regulated market to our west, lowered their prices with an interrupter earlier this week, and now we wait. No interrupters this week. No change of the gas outside of the regular regime. So tomorrow morning at 12:01, we'll know what gasoline prices are. But I wonder, and this might be something you want to talk about in the open hour, I wonder if these are the instances where gasoline regulation is harming us here in Nova Scotia, right? How many days and how many cents did we pay more than we should have because the Energy Board didn't use the interrupter clause and didn't adjust the price for gasoline. They seem to be very quick, in my opinion, on interrupting to raise the price, but it seems when the opposite happens that the Energy Board is maybe not as quick to lower the price. Anyway, we'll find out tomorrow morning at 12:01. Hopefully we'll see a reduction, but there's another day of trade yet, so we'll wait to see what is going on with gasoline prices. Speaking of prices, did you follow the bouncing ball yesterday? That was the rate decision from the Energy Board on Nova Scotia Power, or a lack thereof decision, or maybe a half decision. If you didn't, the Energy Board reviewed the request for a significant increase in our power rates. They put out a 300-page decision on it yesterday that essentially said, nope, you can't have that, but you can have a rate increase. But you have to look at some of the recommendations that we laid out for you and then come back within 2 weeks with an amended number. So I think the takeaway for this, folks, is that we're going to see an increase in our rates. Maybe not to that full 8% or what it was over 2 years that was originally asked for. But you're going to see an increase. Not a lot of people happy with that. I know the opposition politicians were very quick off the mark yesterday to condemn the decision by the Energy Board. The Premier of Nova Scotia, who continues to be in Texas, and Energy Minister of Nova Scotia, put out a rather long missive on social media yesterday showing his displeasure at the decision, but really kind of stopped short on saying that he was going to take action. We've seen Tim Houston react to this file in the past, right? We saw him, be very public with his opposition to the potential for a Nova Scotia power rate increase, saying that we just couldn't afford it. And then when this happened, he reacted yesterday angrily and raised some of the same points that he had before, but didn't say that he was going to come back to Halifax. I understand he's back in Nova Scotia tomorrow and act on it. Maybe he's waiting to see what the number is from Nova Scotia Power that we'll get in the next couple of weeks. But this feels like a pattern with our Premier, right? We'll put some posts onto social media and show some anger and say that he's standing up for us, and then when we get down to the nitty-gritty, either backs it off or doesn't act. Maybe we should give the Premier the benefit of the doubt on this one because we still don't know what exactly that power rate increase is going to be. That might also be something that you want to talk about on the open hour today. Yesterday we had a couple of calls and I got angry, and I think rightly so, about a decision by the Speaker of the provincial legislature here in Nova Scotia banning the public from Province House yesterday during a very crucial vote on a good chunk of the budget. It came in reaction to a protest that was in the building the night before. Now, the gallery singing, as I understand it, at least from the Speaker's perspective, was part of the reason why, but there were other things that were happening inside there, the banging on the windows and getting in the way of MLAs trying to leave the building, that caused the Speaker to make the decision to ban the public from Province House out of concerns for safety. I think the quote that we heard on the news today was that everybody deserves a safe space to work, was the reason behind the decision. I don't buy it. I think that if you're going to do that, then do that in the immediacy, but don't put a ban on people attending the provincial legislature on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and then review it on Monday. Right? If you're feeling unsafe, then there are procedures, there are people in place at the provincial legislature to act upon that, to remove them. There are rules. Gloria McCluskey called our show yesterday and laid out what the rules are. But do you need to do it for 3 days and then review it on Monday? Many indications are that the session's going to wrap on Friday. Right? We're going to get the second half of the budget vote done. And then politicians will rise for the spring summer recess, I guess. So the Monday goalpost is kind of irrelevant. This is, and I said it yesterday, and I maintain this. This is not what our forefathers are. Those that came before us that laid out the way that the democracy is going to work in Nova Scotia and Canada had in mind. This is a government that doesn't want to hear the pushback on a decision or decisions made in its budget, and have now effectively banned you and me and Vanessa and everybody else from going to Province House. And folks, that's wrong. They work for us. Something else you might want to talk about when we open up the telephone lines after 11 o'clock today. There's a lot of bad stuff going on in the world, right? There's a lot of you might turn on your television, right? You go onto your social media. Even though Meta took a pretty big, and Google took a pretty big hit yesterday with a ruling out of Los Angeles that said that they're responsible for addicting us to their platforms, which is going to have wide-ranging impact, I think. But it seems everywhere you turn, right? You look out the window. I mean, it's snowing. And you look at the television, you turn on the television news, you open up your social media feeds, and it's just, bad news after bad news. The world is certainly on edge these days. There are a lot of things that are impacting your life. We talked about some of them here just a few moments ago. Power rates, water rates, tax rates, everything on the rise. The grocery store, my goodness, right? Feels like we need a break. I know I do. Wouldn't it be fun just for a couple hours to gather a few friends and just unplug, right? Well, there's an event happening at the Rebecca Cone on Sunday that's designed to do that. It's being billed as a party from start to finish. The hits of the 70s, 80s, and 90s. The band is Dwayne Gretzky, Canada's premier party band, I've been told. And they're coming to town to give you just something else to focus on that isn't always just doom and gloom. It's guaranteed to get you out of your seat, and if you're so inclined, I'm sure it's going to get you dancing, and it's certainly going to lighten the mood and perhaps change your perspective. That show's happening on Sunday at 7:30 at the Rebecca Cone. The band is Dwayne Gretzky, and it looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. So if you're interested in taking a couple hours and just disconnecting, here's a perfect opportunity to do so, and why not do so on us? Vanessa, in her hands, has a package of 4 tickets. So you and a bunch of friends can get together on Sunday, head down to the Rebecca Cone, and just party like it was 1999 or 89 or 79, depending on your vintage. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Caller number 7 today. Caller number 7, 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Package of 4 tickets to see Dwayne Gretzky down at the Rebecca Cone. It looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to take a break. When we come back, could there be a strike at long-term care facilities today? A conversation with the union representing workers there when we come back. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Friday Eve edition of the Todd Show. I forgot to mention this off the top, and we're awaiting the arrival of our next guest, so it's an opportunity for us to do so. We announced yesterday that Todd Veinotte, the namesake of this show and the host of this show for a long time, is going to make a return to the studio tomorrow. Many of you have been asking how he's doing, and what's up with Todd has been a popular email chain that I've been getting as of late. So Todd's going to join us here on Friday. He's going to sit in the host chair for the next for 3 hours and do his thing, and all will be revealed. So I hope that you can spend some time with us tomorrow. I've been told that Todd is planning to do an open hour, I think at 11 o'clock tomorrow. So if you want to join the show and say hi, there's an opportunity to do so as well. He's got some special guests lined up as well for the show. So I hope that you can participate in the big show tomorrow. That's going to start, of course, right at 10 o'clock. Todd Veinotte back in the host chair, and we're looking forward to it. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. That's the phone number. I want you to remember it because we're going to do an open hour for our Thursday edition or Friday Eve right here in about 40 minutes or so, and there's certainly lots to talk about. But there are some other events and news that are happening in the city. We talked about this a little bit earlier in the week, at the end of last week perhaps, that there was negotiations that had come to an end with the long-term care workers in Nova Scotia. The Canadian Union of Public Employees saying earlier this week that they didn't reach a deal with the province on Tuesday as a part of last-ditch conciliated talks and were to be in a legal strike position within 48 hours. I am very pleased to welcome to the show today to give us an update on where we stand with this, CUPE Long-Term Care Coordinator. That's Tammy Martin. How are you, Tammy?
I'm great, thanks. How are you?
I guess the most important question is, are you on strike?
We are not on strike. However, we could be very soon.
So we're the 48 hours have passed, correct?
Yes. Well, we have to serve 48 hours notice
right.
Before we go on strike, so we haven't done that yet.
Okay, so the hope is to get back to the table and to negotiate, correct?
Oh, absolutely. This is the last thing that we want to do. You know, we don't want to, our members don't want to hit the street. But right now, nobody's paying attention. Government is not listening. So, you know, if we have to, that's certainly what we'll do. But it's not something we're going to enter into lightly.
And I know it's there's strategy and stuff involved with regards to this. But do you have an idea of when you could issue that 48 hours notice?
Well, right now we're thinking, sometime in the middle of April,
right.
We could be looking at a province-wide strike.
Tammy, what's at stake here? Why have negotiations broken down?
Well, the government failed to negotiate. They came 5 times with the same package. We've told them time and time again that we're the lowest paid in Atlantic Canada, that our counterparts in Prince Edward Island and New Brunswick in some cases make close to $10 more an hour than our workers in Nova Scotia, and our workers can't afford to work in long-term care any longer. They're living in poverty. We had a member stand up at one of our conventions and tell us that she lives in her car because she, in order to go to work, she has to have a car, but she can't afford both.
Tammy, what's the going rate? What are long-term care workers getting paid these days?
So it varies depending on your classification, but our lowest classification, which is our support service staff, environmental workers, laundry, dietary, and long-term care aides, are at $18.77 an hour.
Wow. Yeah,
and the government offered a market adjustment to that classification, which works out to 18 cents.
I'd laugh. That's not funny, but it is.
It is like, so, and of course, they're telling their employees that we're not being truthful and giving them, our members the full package, the full story. So certainly the pattern is there in the percentages that all public sector workers have received. But the bottom line is the market adjustment for our support service worked out to 18 cents. I told them at the table they should be embarrassed to come with that.
They say why they don't think that your crew, your staff, your union members are worth more than $18.77 an hour?
They don't have the money. Well, you know what? They have money for everything else.
Right.
These workers are caring for the most vulnerable Nova Scotians. They're doing the heavy lifting. They're doing the cleaning and the laundry and feeding, and cooking. And I think they should be valued. The work that they do is unbelievably important, and I think government needs to look at just how undervalued they put these workers.
And this sector is growing, right? We know that more and more people are trying to access long-term care each and every month.
Absolutely. And, in this terrible budget that was announced, there was $834 million allocated for new homes, for new builds. And Barb Adams, continues to say that they're growing long-term care. I don't know who they're going to get to work in these facilities because currently these workers work short-staffed every day because nobody, you can go down the street and work at a fast food restaurant now with minimum wage going up with, not nearly the responsibility that folks in long-term care have.
Right. And are there prescribed minimums of staffing levels, Tammy, or are we breaking those?
There should be.
Right.
It was announced years ago that there should be a 4.1 ratio for level of care, but that was never prescribed into law. So it should be followed, but I can say with certainty that these workers are working well below that,
right,
and they work short each and every day.
And not only does that impact their lives, right, but it impacts the folks that they're looking after.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you talk to a long-term care worker and they miss the fact that they used to be able to do, grandma's nails or fix her hair because they just don't have the time for that anymore. They are getting the essentials done. They are getting what needs to be done because that's what keeps them there. It's certainly not the money. The fact that they love these residents that they work with is what keeps folks there.
Tammy, what's the pipeline like coming into the profession? I mean, obviously, those that want to be long-term care workers are hearing these stories, and for $18.71 an hour, I don't know if I'd want to go to school for that.
Well, and you don't for that classification.
Right.
You would need a high school graduation, but be clear though that when people come into long-term care, they don't stay. Gone are the days when folks would come into this profession or into this sector and work for 25, 30, 40 years. People come in, see the working conditions, see what they deal with each and every day. And I mean, some of these clients and residents, they have challenges. So there's safety challenges. There's lots of other things at play here. So
Right.
People aren't staying. People are coming in and, I can go down the street and make just as much money and not work nearly as hard.
Or cross the border and go to New Brunswick.
Absolutely. If I'm in Amherst, why am I going to work in Nova Scotia?
Right.
I'm going to go across the border and make $10 more an hour.
Tammy, what's the next steps here? We know conciliated talks failed earlier this week. Are new talks scheduled, or where will we go from here?
No. So right now we are willing. We will go back to the table today if they call us back, but they have to call us back with an offer. And Barb Adams continues to say that they've settled hundreds of agreements. They did that on the backs of CUPE members. So they settled agreements with the other unions with Me Too clauses. So that means that CUPE is doing the heavy lifting and fighting for better wages for long-term care across the province. And when we achieve something better, the other unions will sign on to it. So, we are ready, willing, and able to come back to the table immediately, but we are also ready to hit the street if nothing comes forward.
Tammy, please keep us in the loop, okay?
Will do. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks, Tammy. That is Tammy Martin, CUPE long-term care coordinator. Conciliated talks failed on Tuesday. They're in a legal strike position. They have not given 48 hours notice. The plan is to wait a couple of weeks before they do that and hope that the province, the employer, comes back to the table and they can negotiate some kind of resolution to this impasse, as it's being called. Time for us to take a break. Blake is here. He's going to update us on what's going on in the news. On the other side of it, we know that the budget vote is coming. It's next week. And there is a movement afoot to stop the tax hike. Executive Director of the Rental Housing Providers of Nova Scotia, Kevin Russell, will be your guest when we come back. You're listening to The Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Olstrand. See you after the news. Welcome back, everybody. It is the Thursday, or as we like to call it, the Friday Eve edition of the Todd Veinotte Show. Very glad you're able to spend some time with us. If you were listening yesterday for the first hour of the program, you heard our interview and callers' questions of the mayor of HRM, Andy Fillmore. Of course, a majority of those questions focusing on the upcoming budget ratification vote, which we know is going to happen on the 31st of March. The mayor didn't appear to be very happy with the way that the budget rolled out, and said he had some disappointment in the number, and said that he was going to try and do some things outside of the budget committee to try and lighten the load, particularly when it comes to the contentious issue that is the reconstruction of the Halifax Forum. And if you haven't listened to the interview, by the way, you can just log on to our website and log on to the Todd Veinotte Show page, and all of our back shows are there, and you can listen to our conversation with Mayor Fillmore. Obviously, the budget and the increase in property tax. Now, it's obviously, as one of our callers raised yesterday, everybody's kind of talking about 9.5% as the average tax bill, but that's a difficult calculation because some people have caps, some people don't. Some people have, the rate is they didn't know, which was interesting. I think Ian, one of our callers, raised an interesting point that we won't know the exact rate number until that vote is held on the 31st. You'd think that they would know that by now, but apparently they don't. So the number that everybody's working off of, at least from City Hall, is a 9.5% increase in the average bill, and that's going to hit to everybody right in the pocketbook. There's no doubt about that. And this budget has got a lot of people upset, more than I've seen in a long time at the municipal level, anyways. And many are taking pen to paper in order to try and voice their opposition to this, and to try and get to City Council to change their mind. There's a Stop the Property Tax Hike campaign that's been underway, and it's seen a rather large increase in the number of people that have signed on to their petitions and have shown their support for this campaign. One of the people behind it is our next guest, and I'm very pleased to welcome back to the program today the Executive Director of the Rental Housing Providers of Nova Scotia. That's Kevin Russell. Kevin, how are you?
I'm good, Dan. Besides the weather, things are good.
Not much we can do about the weather. I asked the mayor if he could fix that yesterday. He said no. So we tried.
No.
Kevin, are you surprised at the number of people that have joined this? I know that we have these kind of campaigns and petitions all the time, right? But this one seems to have hit home with people.
It certainly has. When we sent out our media release, we said there was over 6,000 residents from all 16 districts that joined the campaign. I just took a quick look at our dashboard here, and we're just under 7,000 now. So that's a huge jump since 4 days ago. So people are signing up, and they're sending emails to the councillors. They're calling them, and these are real people. And so it has taken off, and it just illustrates the frustration residents have across HRM. Many are asking, where are they going to cut if this increase goes through? Or, they're looking at, cutting groceries, heating, or, they're looking at everything. Right. And this is going to be tough. So, so it's no surprise that it's gained has gained momentum at this date.
People are looking into their wallets, Kevin, and are seeing more dust than dollars these days. And it's not just this tax increase, right? We saw yesterday that power rates are going up. We don't know how much, but they're going to go up in this year and next. We know water rates are up. This tax increase is almost 10%. It's the tax burden is getting tougher on people, it seems, every day.
Well, it sure is. I think people are beginning to realize the biggest drivers of their household expenses is actually government, whether it's property taxes, utilities, and it's going to impact dramatically on household spending because there's just not enough paycheck left over at the end of the month. So something that we're seeing too. I'm hearing from our members that their residents are showing up and saying, can we start talking about maybe some, rent payment programs, because I don't know what I just want to know what my options are.
Right.
So these are early signs, and I would recommend anybody out there that thinks they're going to have a problem, start talking with your landlord as soon as you can, so you can work out some kind of arrangements. Because we don't want to lose residents because of this situation.
Not something we think about normally when it comes to rent increases. Is the ability to speak with our landlord and try and come to some sort of mutually beneficial solution. Normally, that's the rent and that's it.
Yeah, for sure. And what happens? We see a lot of people get in trouble real fast because all of a sudden it's the end of the month, and then it's into the second month, and there's still an issue, and it could have been resolved before it got that far. So sometimes, you get too far down the rabbit hole, and it's hard to fix the problem.
Kevin, how is the market out there? You're obviously plugged into it more than most. We're hearing anecdotal information that vacancy rates are on the rise, and some buildings, I mean, even around here at the radio station, are offering rent incentives to get people to rent their apartments.
Yeah, that's what we're hearing from our members, and it's widespread. It's both at the existing rental housing when on renewals that lease-ups are taking longer, and so there's rental incentives and possible discounts there. On the newer properties that are just coming to market, rental incentives, free rent and gift cards and items like that are being promoted heavily as incentives.
Kevin, are the larger landlords having trouble filling their spots? And the reason why I ask that is, we look around here and I see cranes all over the place. We're talking about a large development over at Micmac Mall of 4,000 units. I read today about another big development that is proposed for Regency Drive and Clayton Park. Like, we're talking thousands upon thousands of units. Are all of these units getting eaten up, or are they a majority or a percentage of them empty?
Well, we're seeing and we're hearing from across our base, including the large landlords, that their vacancy is up. There's been reports recently in the news saying that, and that's across the board. So it's no surprise if supply goes up. Vacancy will go up, and that's what's happening. It's supply and demand. We've always said that once supply catches up and there's an imbalance with oversupply, rents will settle down, and in some cases will probably reduce. That's what happens in other jurisdictions when they get overbuilt. And you're right, there are thousands of units coming to market. The latest number I've seen, you should see about 12,000, 13,000 units over the next 2 years, 3 years, because that's how long it takes to build a building, right?
And we know that the immigration and the population gain in Nova Scotia is starting to slow, right? So are we in danger of building apartments that won't be occupied?
Quite possibly, or not 100% occupancy. So, it'll be interesting how this plays out. You just look around at other jurisdictions where there's oversupply, and it makes for a renter's market. And so we'll see how it unfolds here, and we'll carefully monitor the absorption rate of the new units.
Kevin, the Stop the Rate Hikes campaign is available for people to join on the website, stoptheratehikes.ca. We know that the budget vote is on the 31st, and the more names on this, the more likely to affect some kind of change, correct? Yeah,
that's what we're seeing. We're hoping that more people will join. I mean, this is the last weekend before the vote, and it's not only just signing up; it's actually using the tools on the website to contact counselors and let them know your situation and explain to them what's happening to you and what the impact is going to be on your household and your family, because this property tax hike, along with the power and water and groceries, you put it all together, it's a tough market out there. People are really struggling, and they're looking for a break. I mean, they're just people are looking for a pause in the spending so they can recalibrate over the next year or so they can get back on track. But councillors seem not to be listening to these to the residents who are actively calling them and emailing them. So we'll see.
Kevin, appreciate it, sir.
Thank you very much, Dan.
Kevin Russell, the Executive Director of the Rental Housing Providers of Nova Scotia. StopTheRateHikes.ca is the number. Folks, just looking very quickly at some of the numbers in specific districts of people that are joining this campaign. Some of those numbers are into the 700, 600, 500. And if you go back and you look at the election results, a lot of these districts are won by, not by more than 1,000 votes, a couple thousand votes. So your voice really matters in something like this. And are we going to affect change on this budget? Anybody knows that answer, but it certainly will raise awareness of a politician that might see their seat in jeopardy with people that are upset with the way that this budget process rolled out. Time for us to take another break here on the Todd Veinotte Show. When we come back, a shortage of dental staff. We've talked a lot about the medical community, doctors and nurses and nurse practitioners and that end of things, but we haven't talked a lot about the dentists, and this is having an impact on service in the province. A conversation with Nova Scotia Dental Association President Dr. Caleb Porter right after the break. All right, welcome back. We talk a lot about the medical community in Nova Scotia and some of the challenges that it's facing. We've heard the stories from Dr. John Gillis, of course, on the ERs. We've talked to the Nova Scotia Nurses Union about some of the struggles that they're having filling positions and some of the Herculean efforts that nurses that are working are doing to try and keep things running. We know that there are still a ton of Nova Scotians that are on waiting for the doctor list. But other medical-like services and medical services in the province are also facing issues. And one of the areas that I don't think gets enough attention is that of dentistry here in Nova Scotia. And I don't think that, and maybe our next guest can clarify this, I don't think that we're short of dentists, but we're certainly short of people that help dentists out, assistants and so on and so forth, and with the extra pressure that's being put on the dentistry industry in our country because of changes to the rules on the federal level, it's exacerbating the problem. I'm very pleased to welcome into the program today to tell us a little bit more the president of the Nova Scotia Dental Association, Dr. Caleb Porter. Dr. Porter, how are you? I guess I should probably... There you are. Hello. Are you there?
Oh, yeah,
gotcha.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear, sir. Appreciate you joining the show. So, am I correct that we're not short on dentists, but we're certainly short on people that help dentists?
That's what it boils down to, yes. I mean, if you did the math for dentists for the population, you probably have enough. There is a bit of a distribution issue where it seems the urban areas get serviced well and rural areas get left behind a little bit. But the real issue we're facing here now is a shortage of dental assistants and dental hygienists, and that's what we're facing. That's what we're trying to solve here.
I hear that there are well over 100 positions available on your website for hygienists and for assistants.
Yeah, and it's been that way for quite some time, and truthfully, that might not even meet the mark. I know personally people who have been trying for months or longer to find staff and just sort of given up. So it might not even reflect the true urgency here.
Dr. Porter, do we know why? Is it a jurisdictional issue? Is it people not wanting to get into the career field? Is it a combination of both?
Yeah, I think there's a number of factors here, and I will say, too, that it's not unique to Nova Scotia. I think most provinces in Canada are affected by this, too. But post-COVID, we got very busy, and there was a bit of an early exodus with early retirements. We have an aging workforce, so people are retiring faster than we're replacing them. We have programs like the Canadian Dental Care Plan who offer coverage to a lot of people that didn't have it before. So there's a lot more people looking to get some dental treatment done. And we're working at capacity. We also think there's a bit of an issue too, where perhaps the benefit of working in dental careers is not well known amongst students these days. And again, of course, we were dealing with a bit of a bottleneck in training. The people graduating are not meeting capacity here.
And that's a problem in a number of career fields these days. Is that pipeline of new people coming into the profession is creating a little bit of a bottleneck.
Yeah, you're right. I've heard it from many other health professions, and as you highlighted in your intro, we're not alone in this one.
So you can't just walk in off the street and be a dental assistant. There's obviously some education involved here.
Correct. Yeah. That being said, the career possibilities. The career possibilities in an assistant or hygienist are really good now. Obviously, we have a huge demand for them. But, the training for an assistant, we're looking at, 9 to 12 months, and you really can kind of enter that program straight out of high school. And you look at hygiene, it's 2 to 3 years. You have a bit of prerequisite work you need to pick up right after high school, but it's very manageable. So, the path to employment taking these routes is not as onerous as some of the other programs and other careers are, for sure.
Right. So in order to highlight that and to maybe give things a little bit of a boost here, the NSDA is holding an event this weekend on Saturday down at the Lord Nelson to expose some people to the careers and hopefully getting some people on the path.
Yes, it's the first time we've done this. We're optimistic, and I know the registration crowd has grown, so we're happy with that. But the program, Future Dent, is kind of set up to fill two mandates. And as you said, one of them is to inspire people in careers in oral health, dentistry, dental assisting, dental hygiene. And then the second component of this is to access people already in those training programs and help them sort of locate employers, and so it's acting as a bit of a job fair as well, too.
The event goes, as I mentioned, at the Lord Nelson from 10 until 2 on Saturday. Dr. Caleb Porter, I appreciate your time today.
Oh, thanks for having me. I appreciate it, too.
That is Dr. Caleb Porter. He's the president of the Nova Scotia Dentist Association. Future Dent, if you're looking for a career, there's an opportunity. It seems that there are a lot of career paths that are opening up. In fact, to the point where we're seeing a call from the industry to get people into the trade or into the career path of becoming a dental assistant or a dental hygienist or so on and so forth. And we know that the training programs are there. Some of them are busy, but they're there. And if you have a youngster that's maybe looking for something, why not check it out? 10 o'clock until 2 at the Lord Nelson in Halifax. It's for high school students and those in post-secondary that have perhaps never really thought about it before and can help out things. The government program that we had Don Davies in here earlier this week, the interim leader of the federal NDP, touting that dentistry program, but it certainly has created more work for the dentistry industry across the country and thus has created some career opportunities here in Nova Scotia. Time for us to take a break. We're going to get an update on the news here at the top of the hour, and on the other side, it's time for the second to last open hour of the week. The Friday Eve edition of the open hour will take flight. Lots to talk about. If you want to get into the queue early, Here's your chance. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. The open hour after the news. Welcome back to the Friday Eve edition of the Todd Veinotte Show. This is the open hour. This is your chance to talk about the issues of the day or whatever it is that is on your mind. The telephone lines are open, 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. That's the number. Boy, there was an explosion of news yesterday here in Nova Scotia with ranging from closing down Province House to public participation to Nova Scotia Power getting a ruling from the Energy Board on a rate increase, or a kind of ruling, or a half a ruling, or maybe a quarter ruling. Not really sure what it meant. We know the rates are going up. We just don't know by how much. The Energy Board sending back the document, a 300-page document yesterday, and telling Nova Scotia Power to try again and come up with a better number. So I guess at the end of the day, we know that you're going to pay more for electricity this year and next. By how much remains to be determined. Nova Scotia Power also in the news yesterday with the Office of the Privacy Commissioner saying it will stop its investigation of that cyber attack that's been a year now, right? It was March last year. And if Nova Scotia Power ups its security measures and gets rid of your SIN numbers, that is sort of the latest in that. We had a caller yesterday that said it was just a couple of days ago that they saw their credit card hit from the fallout from the attack, right? And maybe it's just me, and I know that there's been a change of leadership at Nova Scotia Power, and we have been trying to get the new boss on the show, and we'll continue to do so until we are successful. But we haven't really got, at least to me, a good explanation as to why Nova Scotia Power was keeping social insurance numbers. Understand that they needed them for credit checks and for some people that get T5s, which I don't understand. Maybe they're investors in Nova Scotia Power. But why did we need to keep them? Once that credit check was done, why? And now they are out in the dark web because of that. So the Office of the Privacy Commissioner is said for them to move forward. I'm not sure if we accept that as the ratepayer, and if we're happy with the fallout. We know we got credit protection, or at least credit monitoring, for 5 years. But that's a year old now. We've only got 4 left, and what happens after that? These numbers are going to be floating around in the dark web forever. Anyway, that might be something you want to talk about. Of course, the half of the budget bill passed yesterday, the provincial budget, and that was done without any kind of public participation in the gallery because the Speaker of the House shut things down yesterday after a protest on Tuesday that involved singing. And if the Speaker is to be believed, and we have no reason not to believe her, that there was some other instances or incidents that happened during that protest that caused people to be fearing for their security. And Speaker Barkhouse said that everybody deserves a chance to work in a safe workplace, and I don't think anybody can really dispute that. But do you need to shut it down for 3 days because of that? There are mechanisms in place to remove people who are breaking the rules that we got laid out for us yesterday. But should you just shut it off for everybody? I think her words were a few people ruined it for everybody, which I don't buy. But that's just me. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255 to the phones. And we say hello to Tim this morning. Tim, how are you?
Morning, Dan. How are you?
I'm good. What's on your mind, sir?
Very good. Well, Nova Scotia Power / Water Commission and the breach of information for their customers.
Right.
I'm not sure why there's so much silence. I can make my own assumptions, but at the end of the day, there's counselors that certainly are sitting on both, and I'm not. It's disconcerting that there's someone knows something, but yet we're going to be responsible for paying more for a service that I'm not sure is being provided. But nonetheless, once the information is on the dark web, there's going to be those who are adversely affected, and I'd like to know what, if anything, is being done about it. I look forward to hearing from the new Nova Scotia Power head and see what he knows. But like I say, once you start making the necessary precautions, I've said before on your show that the horse is out of the barn, but it's concerning that our personal information is out there somewhere, and if some are being tapped on their credit card now, it's just a matter of time before many others are.
Right, and no answers as to why they held on to some of that information when they didn't really need it.
Well, Dan, that's a valid question, but as I said, there's HRM counselors that obviously know more than what they're saying. You can't run from it. You're on there. You have a duty to represent your counselors and your constituents. But if they're not saying something that even the reason or it's cause for concern to ask why.
Appreciate the call, Tim. Have a good one.
Cheers.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. The open hour is underway. Lines are wide open, folks. If you want to join the conversation, you certainly can do so. Regular rules apply. You don't have to talk about the issues of the day. You can bring up something that we talked about in the past, something that we didn't talk about, something you think that needs attention. I thought it was interesting in our interview with Kevin Russell on the Stop the Rate Hikes.ca. That's the website. A couple of people have been asking for it. StopTheRateHikes.ca is the website. That they're seeing a pretty significant uptick in the number of people that are participating in this information campaign and this petition and this email campaign to try and stop the city budget. The numbers that break down by district, I think, are important. I think that if you are a counselor and you're listening to the show today and you're seeing that, well, about 700 people in your district are upset with this, that could be enough to sway an election, right? A lot of these seats get won by less than that. District 9 is a prime example of that. And if there's enough people out there that are upset by this budgeting process and you're looking for re-election, I've said it before, and I know many of you will agree with me, that politicians flow with the breeze of the way the public opinion is swaying that day. And petitions are petitions. A lot of politicians and a lot of pundits will say that petitions are just that. They don't really carry a whole lot of weight. But I think in this instance, just the sheer numbers of people in each district, all 16 districts are represented in this petition campaign. I think that's how you catch the attention of politicians. If you say, hey, look, I'm not happy with this, and, when we do this again, when we have an election campaign, I'm not voting for you, that carries weight. And we've seen public participation and public protest change opinion of governments before. We saw it happen right there at Province House when they let people into Province House to voice their concerns. They don't do that anymore. I guess they just don't really care what you think. But it works. It has worked, and I think this is something that may work. Are we going to see it this time around? Maybe not. But if you're listening to our conversation with the mayor yesterday, we know that next budget, we're looking at another increase. I think it was 8 or 9%, and then 10% on top of that, and then 10% on top of that. By the time that this council is looking for re-election, folks, we could be facing a 50% increase in our property tax. I'm not going to say rate because I know that's a troubling term for some, but you could see a pretty significant jump in the amount of tax that you're going to pay. Mayor wasn't happy with the process. He said that yesterday. Disappointed, I think, is the word that he used. And I know many of you are as well. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We're going to take a break. The lines remain open. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255 to your calls after the break. All right, everybody, welcome back. It's a snowy Thursday. It doesn't feel a whole lot like this is the last little bit of March, does it? Feels more like this is the last little bit of January. But anyway, I think hopefully we'll start to see spring flowers, as they say, happening soon here. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Let's go to the phones and say hello to Mike. Mike, how are you?
I'm good, Dan. Thanks. Just everyone be careful out there. The roads are greasy, I can tell you that.
Okay.
Holy jumping.
Well, appreciate that. Thank you.
I just want to talk about the budget in Houston and all that stuff.
Sure.
And just wondering what you think about this. So I understand why people are so upset about the budget cuts and them offering an 18-cent raise to the long-term care workers. Like, that's a joke.
Yeah.
They should be embarrassed for that.
It's insulting. Absolutely insulting.
It really is, yeah. But on the other hand, I'm wondering, like, all these protesters protesting the budget and the union workers, or not the union workers, sorry, the union representatives, like, are they all the same people that are opposed to Houston developing our natural resources?
I would imagine some of them are.
Yep. Yeah, like, you can't have your cake and eat it too, because we're broke. And one thing I can say about Houston, he's the first premier in a long time who's tried to generate money other than raising taxes that I can think of. I mean, maybe you could think of someone else who has, but.
Well, all will say that their investments are about generating jobs, right? That's kind of always been the thing. You know, we're going to spend X amount of $1 billion and it's going to create X thousands of jobs, right? You see that almost every day on the news. But if it actually comes, I get it.
Yeah, he's trying to do it by creating jobs and creating infrastructure instead of just raising taxes like a lot of governments before him have done.
Right. And
I mean, people got to realize how broke we actually are.
Well, no, and I mean, he laid it out, right? I think he was in here when he laid it out that we're like 58th in GDP in North America out of 58. We're the last. We're at the bottom.
Yeah, we're the dead last.
So obviously things have to change. But, Mike, I wonder if, we often talk about, the dollars, and that's always the answer from politicians is like, well, we're spending, this amount of billions of dollars on things. If we're getting, good value for that money, if we're spending $6.5 billion on healthcare, are we really getting good return on investment on that? Like, those are the spending numbers that always concern me.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. And I don't think this government's any different than any other government is where they're not as transparent as they want you to believe they are.
Yeah, for sure.
Like they're gonna spin things to make themselves look good and the opposition look bad. It don't matter who's in power, but they're definitely in a hole. That's for sure.
Appreciate it, Mike.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. That is the telephone number. Nobody is going to complain about a dollar that's spent in healthcare, right? That's always the biggest chunk of the budget. I think it's 35% of the budget this time around. But, just to say that we're spending X amount of billions of dollars on things is normally enough to make people feel good. But are we spending it in the right spots? Are we spending it on frivolous things? Are we actually improving health care for Nova Scotians? Are we, and I'm just using healthcare as an example. I mean, just pick a file, right? We always attach a $1 billion thing on it, and then that's always the answer to the question. But, to Mike's point, the premier has been looking outside of the traditional areas to try and generate revenue. I'll give him that, right? But a lot of those projects are long-term projects that aren't going to help you this year or next year or the year after that. And we do have a $1.3 billion deficit in spending, even with all of the cuts that are announced. So obviously something isn't right. Hello, Chris. Chris, are you there?
Good morning, Dan. How you doing, buddy?
I am well. I thought I lost you there for a second.
Yeah, I'm here.
What's on your mind?
Can you hear?
Loud and clear.
Oh, no. Well, you made a good point that these are long-term projects, but if you look at almost everything the federal government and other governments do, most of the big announcements are relating to long-term projects. We kind of have to understand that.
Yep.
But another great point you made, question, is that we, meaning government, are we spending the money in the right area? And I think that's underscored greatly by this new budget coming in to be approved or voted on, at least, on March the 31st here in town.
Right.
Are they spending money in the right places? I don't think so, personally. We could debate that forever, but I don't think they are. I want to revisit for a minute, excuse me, if I could, Dan, the conversation on Monday I had with Patty Cuddle. She didn't answer my question, whether she didn't understand the question or just didn't want, which I think, didn't want to answer it. My point, and I think you understood what I was getting at, My point is that no one should have a problem. I certainly don't. Cap or no cap on property taxes. Give it to me either way. I'll live with it. But nobody could have any real disagreement or argument about not paying for the services that they are provided. Would you agree with that, or what's your thought on
Well,
that?
I mean, that's kind of been my argument with the cap all along, Chris, is that, everybody should pay their share of what they're using. But I know where you're going with this one, and another caller brought this up on Monday, is that you're in a district that pays a lot of the freight here, right? But you also have more service than a rural district does.
Right. No. Oh, okay. No, that you've missed my point.
Okay.
We are paying in our district way more than it costs for the services that we're receiving. Most other districts are going in the hole. They're not paying anywhere near for their services. Doesn't matter whether you get 5 services and I get 10 services or vice versa. What I'm getting at is that pay for the services, the cost of the services that you are receiving. If you're not receiving sidewalks, you haven't got to pay for sidewalks. If you're not receiving city water and sewer, you shouldn't have to pay for city water and sewer. That's the point, is that each district receives certain services, some more or less than others, right? But there's many, many districts that are not paying anywhere near for the services that they receive. David Hensby's district, too, for example, they're 17, and these are 23, 24 numbers, so it's probably worse now. That district is $17 million in the hole annually, minimum, for the services that they are receiving. They're not paying anywhere near for the services they're receiving. And my district, for example, is paying $86 million a year more than it costs to provide our services. So we might be receiving more services, which is normal for on the peninsula, as opposed to more rurally.
Is that because of assessment, Chris? Is that because the value of the property?
I don't think that.
Is that because of assessments?
No. This is where I don't. No, it's got nothing to do with the assessments. It's the fact that, let's say it costs $1 to provide the services that David Hensby has. They're only paying maybe like 75 cents or 80 cents. Let's say it costs the same $1 to provide services to me, and I'm paying like $1.50. This is the point. You should be getting. You pull up to fill up your truck with gas, and it's $1.65 a liter. I pull up behind you. I'm getting the same gas, so I shouldn't pay any more or any less for it. But that's not what's happening. What I'm getting at is a system to be fair, and you can take the cap off. It'll still work the same way, or you can leave the cap on. But if you receive $1 worth of services, be that bare bones services or the Cadillac of services, you should pay for that $1, not have some other district subsidize that $1. That's the point that I'm trying to make, and these counselors know it, but in her case, for example, she wasn't going to answer it because her district's in the hole as well. And so is Nancy Hartling's district. There's 9 districts, I think, out of the 16 that are all running in the hole. They're not paying for what they're getting. So we and the other districts, Sean Cleary's district, Virginia Hint's district, over in Dartmouth, Mancini's district, we're all paying more than it costs to provide the services. We are getting more services, but we're paying way more for them than what it costs to provide for it. And that's the point that I'm trying to get at. Pay a fair price for what you get. If you're getting $1 worth of services, pay the $1. I have no problem with that, and I don't think you would either, would you?
No, you're right. And fair taxation certainly has been something that I've been championing here for some time when it comes to the assessment cap. Chris, I appreciate it, sir. We're up against the break. Open Hour continues on the other side of the news. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. Back in minutes. Welcome back. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. It is the Thursday or Friday Eve edition of the Open Hour. Lots of lines open, folks, if you want to join the conversation. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. And that is what our next caller, Gary, did. Hello, Gary.
Good morning, Dan.
What's on your mind?
Good. Well, I just wanted to talk about the interview you had with the spokesperson for the long-term care workers.
Sure.
But, yeah, and so it's just to begin with, normally I speak as the ACE team, but I got to give my personal opinion today.
Okay.
So in the first mandate, Tim Houston and his crew ran on, improving the long-term care, health care, which they attempt to do, and they're continuing to do with new builds and such. But this time around, it seems to be a bit different. And when he was on your show here the other week, and I asked him, I told him that I was surprised that he was going to cut the CCAs by 3%. And he never even commented on it. So I don't know what's happening, but, the long-term care is not a service industry in the way that a hotel and waiting on tables and working in a food court. And this is what these workers are up against. And I heard that lady talk about it. I don't know what her name was. But anyways, I just feel that the $10 increase that they're talking about in New Brunswick, that's more appropriate than $18 that they're getting here. Even if you had to go to work for $3 less, I don't know if anybody knows what kind of work it takes to be in a nursing home. It's really challenging. When you look at an 8-hour shift and you've got and the ratio is like 8 to 1 or higher, depending on the shift that you go to. Sometimes it can be as high as 30 to 1.
Wow.
But depending on the shift. So I just feel for these workers, and I really don't want to see them go on strike, because who's going to change an incontinent diaper for these people that are left behind? I mean, it's only going to be the workers that can't go on strike, and it's going to be sparse. So there's going to be lots of outbreak of something, bed sores or whatever. And that's the other thing that has been mentioned in the past about the protection for people in care. There's not going to be much protection with these workers on strike. And I just hope that Tim Houston can see a way to improve the salaries. I know that he already did it once, but you don't stop at just once. It's a continuing thing. And these are professional people. They're not just, like I said, people working in a food court. That's all I have to say about it today, Dan. I really feel for these workers, and it's really hard on the residents that are not going to get their attention.
Gary, appreciate it, sir.
Okay, you take care.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. The lowest tier of worker at the long-term care facilities across the province. That's the places that look after your parents or your grandparents or your aunts and your uncles or your spouses, is $18.77 an hour. And that lowest tier, now obviously there are more in the facilities that make more than that, but that lowest tier worker was offered, I think she said 17 cents an hour increase. It's insulting. The person that was speaking to us on the program, for those of you who are wondering, was Tammy Martin, the CUPE long-term care coordinator. She said that they are in a legal strike position, but have to issue 48 hours notice. They have not done that as of yet. They are hoping for some last-minute negotiations, despite the fact conciliated talks failed on Tuesday, and that may happen as early as mid-April, so a couple of weeks more before we could see a job action. And I know that many of you will be watching that one very closely because, as I said, these are the folks that are looking after our grandparents and our moms and our dads and our aunts and our uncles and our spouses. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Hello, Eric.
Hi, how's it going, Dan?
Good. How are you? What's on your mind?
Well, okay, I tell you what's on my mind. I'll try to be very brief. Look, I'm having a hard time believing all these things that are happening to renters and property taxes and stuff like that. I'm sort of glad in one way I sold my home when I retired 18 years ago. However, I just want to say, I almost choked on my coffee when you were giving out the rendition there of 8% one year, 8% the next year. And if it kept on escalating like that, it would increase property taxes by 50%.
That was right out of the mouth of the mayor. The mayor sat here and said it yesterday.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So how many people are going to lose their homes?
Right.
Right? Think about that. And then you look at Tim Houston. He's not my favorite premier, I can tell you that. I make no bones about that. However, he wants to take off the property cap, rent tax, a cap for people living in apartments. So let me tell you, I know a lot of people that are making between $30,000 and $40,000 a year, and even with this 5% increase, they're treading water. So how many of those people are going to lose their apartments?
Right.
And how many more people are going to sleep out in tents? Halifax and Dartmouth, they're not going to be known as the city of lake and the city of trees. If they keep on with their damn foolishness, we're going to be known as the city of tents. It's terrible. It's awful. They're not taking any consideration of people whatsoever. And on your show, I'm trying not to be emotional here. On your show, I talked about how crazy spending $100 million on bike lanes when we have these problems facing us. It makes no sense. I know that's not a provincial responsibility, but however, it's not making any sense. People are going to lose their homes. And how many people, Dan, do you know offhand, they're thinking about laying off in the civil service?
5%. 5% in the extended service over the next 3 years, I think, is the number.
How many people would that be? Do you know roughly?
Not off the top of my head, no.
I bet you it's pretty significant. Why can't they just have attrition and give people early retirements? So, I'm not against civil servants. If I had a civil service job, I'd be grateful because they get good pay and they get pensions and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
I don't begrudge them that. And they contribute. Don't they pay taxes like everybody else?
You and I do,
don't
too.
They?
Yep.
Yeah, right, exactly. So I don't know where we're going, but it seems like we're going to hell in a handbasket. We're not using our heads. So I want to thank you for your time today.
Appreciate it,
and I hope I made some sense.
No, absolute sense, and I appreciate the call. Have a good one. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. That is the number. It's a scary proposition, right? If the mayor's numbers are correct, and those numbers were included in the budget process, right? For this time is the first time in my memory that they have added to the budget discussion sort of the impact on taxes in years to come. And over the next, couple of years, we could see our tax bills increase by 50%. Like, just think about it. If it goes unchecked. To Eric's point in the bike lane investment, right? The forum, and I know that's a contentious issue, but the forum bill, folks, is $130 some odd million. If you think that's the actual cost now, I've got some bridge property to sell you. It's going to be much more than that because those numbers are a couple of years old now. For 2 sheets of ice and some community space. The mayor said yesterday that if this reconstruction project goes ahead, it will be the most expensive infrastructure project in the history of HRM, paid for by the taxpayer solely. There's no other federal money involved, no provincial money involved. This is HRM money. Just think about that for a minute. We're going to take a break. Back to the phones. You're listening to The Veinotte Show. We're back in minutes. All right, welcome back. Open hour continues right through to the top of the clock. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We'll go to the typing pool. That still makes me smile. The email bag, and this one comes to us from Joyce, and it says, sorry, Dan, but you're dead wrong. The gallery, and then she's referring to the gallery at the legislature, is for observation and not an area for protest. When I think budgets are being worked on, the proceedings should be live streamed, and no one should be in the workplace. Joyce, they are. You can watch a lot of the proceedings of the legislature on Legislature TV. You can find that if you go onto the Government of Nova Scotia website. Anyway, she goes on to write as well, these are dangerous times for politicians. Don't think it can't happen here. There are crazies everywhere. And that comes to us from Joyce. And Joyce, I'll agree with you to a point that the gallery certainly is not an area for protest. And there are rules in place for people that are disruptive during proceedings. But that doesn't mean that they should shut the whole place down for several days on end. Kick the people out. Shut it down for that night. But carry on through Wednesday, Thursday, Friday on two really important votes that are happening. That's the budget votes. That's out of bounds, in my opinion. Anyway, I appreciate the email. Also, from the email bag, this is from Tom at Dartmouth, and it reads, you mentioned governments investing in the medical system. Those investments are absolutely necessary, but it's not the same as investing in our natural resources. There are expenditures in medicine, but no profit return to the province, which could be used for infrastructure or whatever. Investing in natural resources does, in fact, return dollars, which governments, or rather can be used, for infrastructure and many other uses, as well as paying down the debt. We're still paying dearly because past governments, both federal and provincial, ignored our natural resources. At least Mr. Houston is giving our natural resources consideration. Again, that comes to us from Tom. Tom, I will agree, right. Healthcare is expensive. There's no doubt about it, right? Procedures cost money. Salaries cost money. It all costs money. But 35% of the provincial budget is spent on healthcare. I think it's a fair question for Nova Scotians to ask. If we're getting a good return on that investment. I think if you go around and you ask 10 Nova Scotians what they think of their health care, and we've been spending billions on this for many years, I think you know what the answer is going to be. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Hello, Carolyn.
Hello, Dan. How are you this morning?
I am well. What's on your mind?
Oh, I'm pretty good, thank you. Even though you didn't ask, thank you. Well, I'm totally in agreement with you, first of all, to say about the closure of the legislature to the public.
Right.
I think that's insane. You're right. It's our house. We have a right to go speak there. If there's an incident, get the people out. Don't ban people, for days on end. That's crazy. Okay, second of all, you talked about all the bad news, and yeah, there sure is a lot of bad news. I mean, sometimes I feel overwhelmed.
For sure.
So on that, I find escape in nature, and I know a lot of us do. So again, on that topic, and I'm no expert in this, I will preface my little spiel by saying that. So to really get the goods on this topic, I would suggest you contact somebody at the Ecology Action Centre or Nature Nova Scotia, because I've been reading their emails, and apparently when 2023, our provincial government signed the Canada-Nova Scotia agreement with the feds to unlock some funding to get some protected areas here. We were supposed to get, in total, 82,500 hectares. And I thought, wow, that's great. However, it has to be done by March 31st, right? The federal government's fiscal year end. So apparently only 13% of the required 15% so far has been protected, or reports have not been submitted. So actually we don't know what the money is going to be used for, and reports are required as part of the agreement. So 15% is required, and we've only got a few more days, and if it doesn't happen, this money is going to have to go back to the feds. And I think, that's crazy. Money they're handing us, and we're going to have to give it back. It's just crazy. And one more thing,
sure.
When during all the rallies, I remember Nina Newington, she is the executive director of Save Our Old Forest.
Mm-hmm. We've had her on
the air.
She
made a comment.
Yep.
Yeah, she's great. She made a comment that this government just doesn't seem, interested in protecting the land. And, I have to agree. They're getting free money, and, they're not even going to use it. So I'll be contacting my MLA yet again, and I think anybody who's loves to get out in nature and loves to protect it should do the same. And that's all I got. Thanks, Dan.
Appreciate it, Carolyn. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. It's my release is to, y'all know that and it's coming up next week, is sport fishing season here in Nova Scotia. And that's where I go to decompress. And to be one with nature, and the more opportunities that we can create for people to do that. We had a conversation last week about access to beaches, right? We've had a conversation many times about some of the programs that are being launched here to protect forested areas or natural areas. And I get the fact, and I understand the need for resource development. I really do. I think that we're heading in the right direction with regards to that. But we can't forget the other side of that coin either, because the Crown land in Nova Scotia is for the people of Nova Scotia, right? And I think there's a balance that can be played here between industry and resource development, as well as recreational use of forested areas and nature areas here for Nova Scotians. But that's just me. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Hello, Peter.
Hi, Dan. How are you this morning?
I'm good. What's on your mind?
Good. I'm driving around in my vehicle, and you really struck a chord with me this morning.
Okay.
And sorry, but I want people to know out there that these people that work in these long-term care facilities, they're saints. And I want the Premier and anybody else to know these people are saints. They took care of my mother and treated her like a saint. And when I heard this morning that they were only making $18 an hour, I mean, it's just unbelievable. And offer them 18 cents? You know, these people are mostly immigrants. They're of Filipino descent, they're East Indian descent, and they're saints. They took care of my mother like their own mother. And to hear this morning, it just broke me up, and I had to call in. I haven't called in a year, but I got to tell you, Mr. Houston, if you're listening out there, you've got to do better for these people, because without them to take care of our parents, we have nobody. We have nobody. So these people went as far, and they don't even know my mother, showed up at her funeral mass. They didn't even know her, and they were there. That's the kind of people these are. And to give them 18 cents, it's just appalling. And I am just broken about that. And I had to call in. And that's all I have to say.
Peter, I appreciate it, man. I do.
No problem.
I think we'll leave it there, folks. That's a good one to end it on. It's sometimes we think about the expenditures, and we think about government contracts, and we think about workers, but I think Peter kind of hit the nail on the head, right? That long-term care, it touches everybody. Everybody has a relative, a friend, a neighbor that's involved in long-term care, and to have the people that are looking after our most vulnerable, as Peter described, that have to sleep in their car because they can't afford to rent an apartment on the wage that they're making, doesn't make any sense at all, does it? Peter, I appreciate it. Appreciate y'all for dialing the numbers and joining the show. I really do appreciate it, and I look forward to this segment every day. Just a very quick reminder, folks, a couple more emails today. We're going to welcome Todd back to this chair tomorrow. He's coming back, and I know many of you have been asking questions about Todd and how he's doing, so he's coming to the studio. He's going to sit in the big chair. He's going to take over his show again, and all the questions will be answered as I understand it. So make sure that you're around your radio tomorrow from 10 until 1 o'clock. Of course, the open hour will happen at 11, and I know that Todd is looking forward to speaking with you, and I'm certainly looking forward to seeing him back in the studio again tomorrow. Going to stop and take another break. Show continues, folks. We got another full hour of programming, and it's the last Thursday of the month. So that means we're going to welcome our good friend and veterinarian, Dr. Jeff Goodall, into the show. We're heading into the spring season. Lots of things for your furry friends to get involved with. Dr. Jeff is going to give us some advice on how to protect our pets from all of the stuff that happens in the spring, the stuff that was buried in the snowbanks all winter. And he'll be here to answer your questions. Ask the Vet with Dr. Jeff Goodall coming up right after the news at noon. Welcome back. It is the last Thursday of the month. Can you believe it already? Holy smokes, we are there, even though the weather isn't letting us get there, at least not yet. But we are at the last Thursday of the month, and that means that it is time for us to welcome back all the way from Bedford and the Sunnyview Animal Care Center. That is Dr. Jeff Goodall. Dr. Jeff, how are you?
I'm good, Dan. How are you?
Oh, boy, this weather, I know it's driving people crazy, right?
Yeah, I'm getting a little, like everybody, a little tired of walking out to cold rain and snow, but it is what it is. I was going to open today. This was planned a few weeks ago about talking about leaving animals in hot cars. I know it's not necessarily applicable today, but there is a useful video. I actually sent it to Vanessa a few minutes ago because I just remembered it last minute. But it's worth revisiting, just reminding clients or listeners that, pets in hot cars are dangerous. It's dangerous for them, especially those short-nosed cats and dogs. They're called brachycephalic or short-headed breeds and cats. So Pekingese dogs, British short-haired cats with their snub noses, etc., Himalayans. Even a cracked window, parking in the shade, those kind of things are not going to help. And there's a great video by Ernie Ward. It's about 14, 15 years old now. I did send it up to Vanessa, and I sent Vanessa a sheet you guys may or may not be able to put on your website. It's from VIN, or the Veterinary Information Network. And just to remind clients, like even leaving the car in with AC on, a 10-minute or 5-minute errand becomes 10 minutes sort of thing. And, leaving the car running has its own issues. But heat stroke is deadly. And last year we saw a case of it, and a veterinarian working at Sunnyview now, who has a lot of emergency experience, mentioned that they saw, I think 3 cases or 4, and that was her only, and in a clinic, emergency clinic of about 10 vets or something. So it tells you it's really common. People are still not really planning. It's so great to have your animal in your vehicle, and don't forget, you have to have them secured, and I'll release a video. I've reactivated the Dr. Jeff Maritime Vet YouTube channel. It will be running probably not for another few weeks, just waiting for the good weather to do some outside stuff. But I'll do one on securing your pet in the car. Your cat should be in a carrier. Your dog should be in a harness. But either way, plan ahead that you don't leave your animal in the vehicle when it's warm outside. And I mean, like even 4 or 5 degrees and the window's closed, that car will heat up. And leaving your vehicle running, there is, I've only read of it, I've never experienced it, where a dog got loose because it wasn't secure in the vehicle, the AC was running, and it did something. I don't know if it put the car in gear or did something, but there was an accident with the car in the parking lot. So I want to get to the phone calls and help people out, but just really be careful. Summer is coming, and hopefully sooner than later, and just really be careful with your pets, please.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. That is the telephone number, folks, if you want to ask your question of our veterinarian, Dr. Jeff Goodall. Lines are wide open if you want to get in and get that question answered quickly. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Dr. Jeff, you mentioned that it's great to have the pets in the car, and I know many pet owners will agree. It's nice to have them there, in companionship and such. That being said, when the temperature warms up, you're probably not doing them a favor by bringing them out, even if you're not leaving them locked in a hot car just because of the temperature changes.
Yeah, I mean, a good point. We have a new puppy in our home, and little Maggie is going everywhere with us and in training and what have you. But yeah, we're going to have to think. All my last dogs were northern breeds with their very thick coats. Dogs like Maggie, golden retrievers, yellow labs, what have you. Those animals with their shorter coats, people think that they can handle the heat and adjust to it. It's really not that easy. You should be, if you're taking a long walk with your dog, take a bottle that has a built-in bowl that you can give them water, especially if the weather changes on us, which we're in Nova Scotia. And if it gets suddenly too hot or the humidity goes up, when it's foggy, sometimes that humidity, even though it feels cool to us, makes it more difficult for animals to breathe. And again, if you have one of those short-nosed cats or dogs, and really cats shouldn't be outside anyway, but don't get me started on that. If you have a short-nosed dog and you're out with, on the waterfront walking with them, which is what we used to do all the time with our dogs, oh my gosh, the humidity of the fog can really make their breathing difficult. So having water with you all the time, if your dog, if there's no collar, why don't we talk a little bit about heat stroke and what you do and what are the symptoms?
Sure.
I mean, heat stroke is, it's so upsetting because it starts off benignly. You really don't see the problems until, I forgot to mention, we're focusing on dogs and cats. Rabbits that are outside, what other mammals do people let outside in little cages and pens? Just really be careful. When I had birds, I also covered half the cage with a blanket so that even if they were in direct sunlight, which is really great for birds anyway, you need to have a hide for them to move back and forth in the cage out of the direct sun. And of course, if there's a predator overhead, make sure they're in a secure cage. But don't forget that rabbits can get heat stroke too. But basically, a dog that's suffering from heat stroke, they're already panting because they're on a walk with you. So you'll hear people say or refer to elevated breathing rates. That's not actually always that helpful. It's the dry gums, the sticky gums, bluish or bruising color to the gums themselves. If you let it get that far without getting water into that dog, then or cat, I guess, then you're going to start seeing neurologic symptoms all the way from disorientation to sudden profound weakness and even seizures. And the treatment is a medical emergency. And the one thing you want to do is reduce the body temperature as much as you can. Dumping a dog into a cold bath is a mistake, a cat as well. You want cool water, and you can pour it over their head and preferably let them sort of lie in it so that it gets to their stomach, armpits, and feet. But don't cover the animal in water, and certainly don't cover them with wet cloth. You can put wet cloth under their armpits and on their belly and the back of the neck to try and get that radiative cooling started. But if you cover them with cloth, it actually stops that evaporation again. So, if you have like a kiddie pool and you fill it with 4 to 6 inches of water, cool water from the hose, that will help. Prognosis is generally okay, but most clients don't have a first aid kit, and maybe I'll talk about that next time. In fact, I will talk about a first aid kit where you have a rectal temperature, a rectal thermometer to take the temperature. And if it's 39.4, 39.5 and above, or 104 degrees Fahrenheit and above, your animal's in trouble. So you want to get them to care as quickly as possible, because prognosis depends on how long the temperature was elevated, how long it was before we got them cooled down, and of course, how long or how easily or how well we hydrated them. So there you go. I mean, IV fluids, emergency visit. I've seen it happen really commonly with like the Rottweilers, the Bulldogs, the Boxers, because clients are just out there playing with their dog. We're not really thinking. And I still have very unfortunate memories of a beautiful Rottweiler that I knew very well. And the owner completely inadvertently just didn't realize the temperature was going up. It was a hazy day, of course, and the heat was kind of held in by our fog. And, anyway, so just be really careful about it. There you go.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Dr. Jeff is here for the next 45 minutes. If you have a question or a query that you'd like the doctor to answer, here's a good opportunity to do that. We're going to take a break. You're listening to Ask a Vet on the Todd Veinotte Show. We're back in minutes. All right, welcome back. This is Ask a Vet. Dr. Jeff Goodall, our veterinarian from Sunnyview, is here to answer your questions. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. That's the number. Dr. Jeff, let's go to the phone lines, and we'll say hello now to James. James, how are you?
Good, yourself?
Good. Your question for the good doctor, please.
Yes, please. Same-sex dogs, so 2 females, 2 males, pros and cons. Also lasers. I see more people now out having a laser pointing, and I think that could be problematic. Your thoughts, please.
I don't understand the questions. I apologize. Are you asking if two same-sex animals would get along?
No, I did some research, and I've read that perhaps two females might not be as good as two males.
I don't really know how to answer that. I've certainly have been on house calls to homes where two males, two females, they get along just fine, neutered or not, though typically unneutered males might squabble a little more often in general. And, of course, females that go through their cycles usually twice a year, April and October, they have moments of being a little less amenable to company from other dogs. But I don't quite understand the question, but I hope that answers it. And the other question was what again? Sorry?
Laser pointers. People are using laser pointers with their pets.
I don't see a problem. I hope what you mean is laser pointers used to like make cats interactive and what have you. And there's no real, as long as you don't shine it in their eyes, regardless of what companies say, I don't think that's ever a safe thing. It's certainly a good idea, especially like with deaf cats and dogs. Lasers can really help them interact as long, to give them a target on the floor so that they can know you're trying to contact them from a distance in your home. People forget about that. So the lasers have their use, and they can be like, I had a toy for my cats years ago that was intermittently triggered laser device that sat in the middle of the floor and shone lasers on the walls, and that just kept the cats integrated and happy when we were out of the house. It wasn't at a level that they could look in it directly. It was actually quite high, but it aimed lower so that they could play with the light on the wall and keep themselves active and interactive. So I don't see there's a problem there at all. If you have something you want to share, just write the front desk at sunnyview.vet and let me know your thoughts. I'm very busy, but I will read your email. I may not reply, but I certainly will read it. They're certainly safe enough. I mean, again, just don't shine them in your animal's eyes. Probably more useful for dogs than cats. I can't see them being useful for rabbits or lizards or anything like that. And there you go.
Appreciate it, James. Best of luck. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Dr. Jeff, we were talking earlier about taking your dog out for a walk and watching for heat stroke and bringing water along with you. I talk to pet owners a lot. I live very near a pond in HRM that dogs and owners walk around an awful lot. Most will try to keep their pet from having a drink out of the pond. Obviously, because we've heard the horror stories, right?
Right. Are you going after the whole blue-green algae thing?
Right, and ponds in general with all that stagnant water. How do you keep your dog from not drinking it?
Yeah, I don't want to sound smart. I don't know. There's no answer. I mean, especially now that we have a retriever if there's noise in the background, I apologize.
It's all good.
She's being a retriever. But, remind people for the listening audience, I want to be a TV star too. Let's work on that. Even running water can have a layer of blue-green algae under the surface, right? Blue-green algae tends to live in the soil or the sediment of any body of water. It just tends to overgrow in stagnant water because stagnant water is warmer, and it just proliferates more easily, called a cyanobacteria, if my memory's right. And it's fresh and salt water, so brackish water doesn't count either. And the big thing is just listen to the local, like Nova Scotia provincial government was doing. I don't know if they will this year with cutbacks, reports on studies from lakes around HRM and what have you. There are no signs. People say they're going to see the scum on the surface of the water. That's not necessarily so, especially if your dog or you get in the water and start walking around and stir up the sediment. Yes, it can cause a bluish-green appearance to the surface of the water, but you don't know it's there till it's too late. So you use your judgment. If there's stagnant water, keep your dog out of it. Keep yourself out of it for that matter, because it does irritate people's skin and can, if you ingest the water, cause gastric upset. But let's talk about the treatment for a minute. Sure. If you think the animal has been exposed to the toxin, if you will, by the time you identify it, it's pretty serious. So the onset of neurologic signs, such as, again, lethargy, depression, and it can go to seizures, that can be within 60 minutes of exposure. Then there's the liver aspect of it. So it does poison the liver, and that can take 4 to 6 hours. In people, it's mostly the dermatological form, itching, redness, blistering. And so your dog rarely shows those symptoms. So if you know of an area that's in the past been known to have blue-green algae, I wouldn't even go near it. I wouldn't even go there. It's a good idea to remove standing water from plant containers, bird baths, fish ponds, making fresh water available for your pet in your own home, what have you, so they don't tend to want to go towards a puddle or what have you. What else would I want to think about with that? I guess that's it. I guess that would be everything I'd say. And it's just so, the other thing, of course, training. Work on your dog's recall. And if you're, out in CUPE Park, work on your dog's recall. Work on your dog's recall in your backyard. If you haven't worked with your dog for recall, get a hold of a trainer. I could drop names. I guess I'm not supposed to. So let's just say contact your veterinarian for the names of some reputable trainers and get a class or two in. It's worth it. The loss of your pet is, it's devastating. And a few $100s on training is never a bad idea. Then you can expand your training from your backyard into public parks and work on that. So training your dog not to even go near or come back off of a body of water would be a great idea. There you go.
Dr. Jeff, I had a golden retriever in my younger days, and I can appreciate the battle that you're having. It seems that no matter what kind of puddle, pond, lake, stream, it's genetically drawn to it. Oh,
yeah. Our current little girl, Maggie, is already very intrigued with the water around our home. And we're working, actually, after this, I'm going to do her training session, 15 minutes a day. And it's all it takes, guys, 15 minutes a day. And it takes, especially the older dogs. Some breeds are more amenable to training than others, but all it takes is 15 minutes a day. And that also applies to what happened with one of my Eskimo dogs years ago, where I lived up in the country. Hi, everyone in Eller's house. I miss Eller's house. Anyway, one of my Eskimos was intrigued with a little girl across the street from us, and she started to run across the Hartville Road, and it was only because she had a strong recall that I called her back, because she didn't even think about the vehicle coming.
Right.
And it could have been bad. I mean, I guess it sounds dramatic to say so, but having a strong recall on your dog, you just got to do it. You just got to do it. So start working. I mean, there's Dog Training for Dummies books and those kind of things, and I'm certain there's videos online and YouTube. And again, with my channel starting to relaunch, I'll have links to that if you want. I cannot overstress the importance of training, guys. These dogs love us. They depend on us. Our cats as well, of course. They depend on us for their well-being. It's our responsibility to take a little time with them and work with them.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Those are the numbers. We're going to take a break for the news. Dr. Jeff will be here on the other side of it, and we'll head right to the phone lines right after the updates. We continue our conversation with our veterinarian, Dr. Jeff Goodall from Sunnyview Animal Care Center is on the line, and he's here to answer your questions. Dr. Jeff, we'll head right to the phone lines. We've got a few callers here. I'd like to get to as many as we can. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Let us welcome Mark to the show. Mark, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you, gentlemen?
Good. Your question for the doctor, please.
Good. I've had a cat for about over 18 and a half years. He was full grown when I got him, so he's an old dude. He had a broken hip around 5 years. He's been deaf for a couple of years. He gets around, including steps. He sits on the back stoop. He eats, he poops, he cleans. He's got a beautiful coat, but you can tell it's skin and bones underneath. How can I identify if he's experiencing pain?
Okay, so from what I'm reading between the lines, you let him outdoors. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I mean, pain, there's a thing called the Colorado Pain Score chart. You can look it up. Recognizing pain in aging cats is a challenge. But basically, I would think some of the more obvious things are urinary or fecal accidents in the home, less interest in self-grooming and self-care, that the hair coat mats when it didn't used to do that before. That's usually a sign that they can't bend their back around or extend their legs to groom themselves. Obviously, right, reluctance or inability to jump on things, reluctance to be picked up, reluctance to be handled, especially around the lower back and the waist. Creeping along a floor or surface as opposed to walking normally, reluctance to be going up and down stairs. Again, reluctance to touch is the one that I usually watch for. Hiding, changes in behavior, an interest, a lack of interest or antisocial behavior when friends come over or animals in the home that they normally would get along with. And of course, the one that's obvious, though, people have better things to do, is watching your animal in the litter box. Same with dogs. Watch how they're eliminating. If they're standing as opposed to crouching, squatting, whatever word you want to use, that can be a sign as well. So there you go.
Appreciate it, Mark. Best of luck. The older cats have a lot of problems with them, right? They get older and they have all kinds of issues with them. So I appreciate you.
Oh yeah, and never a bad idea to get your annual geriatric screening, blood work screening too. Especially an outside cat should probably have a fecal test annually anyway.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Moving on. Hello, Kevin.
Hello.
Hello, Kevin. Your question for the doctor, please.
Okay, Doc. I got 2 female dogs, and they fight. And it seems to be ramping up. What do you suggest?
Behavior consult. So what you're talking about is fighting between 2 dogs in the home?
It's starting to get right vicious.
No, but you're talking about 2 dogs fighting in the home, correct? Yeah. Right. Yeah. I mean, look, there's no miracle cure here, and it's really not a veterinary issue unless there is an ailment that the other dog is picking up on in one dog, and that's starting the aggression. I mean, it is challenging, to be honest. A behavioral assessment has to be like your top priority. There's a veterinarian, I can't remember her, I know her first name, Juanita. She works at the Elmsdale Veterinary Hospital. You'll need a referral from your current vet. She's really practical. Don't misunderstand me, but sometimes, people who go to counseling for themselves will come out going, this is really practical advice. You need practical advice now and the option, and that's why I would recommend a veterinarian to be involved, a veterinary behaviorist to be involved. You want a recommendation from a behaviorist and the consideration of supplements to help reduce anxiety and, if necessary, medication to stop harm. I mean, the big thing for you at home is ensure safety. If it means putting up a baby gate or something to separate the dogs when they're eating, when they're sleeping, that's imperative. You have to kind of watch that the dogs are not staring or lunging at each other through the barrier, because aggression can actually intensify if your barrier allows triggering stimuli or basically interaction even in spite of the barrier. You have to implement a safety plan, so look for the triggers. I'm just searching my mind here. Look for the triggers that would, there might be a trigger that one dog does something that triggers the other one. But I can't overstate this because you have to be really careful of your family themselves to a friend of mine's listening, Dr. Juanita Ashton. Anyway, thanks, Roby. You just basically got to just get on this now and be really careful with your family getting involved in trying to pull the dogs apart, okay? It could be real bad, real fast.
Best of luck, Kevin. I know that's a tough situation. Dr. Jeff, is it common for dogs that have been living together peacefully for years to kind of develop an edge when they get older?
I don't know about common. It does happen,
right?
But very unusual, to be honest. It makes me wonder if there's an ailment, some sort of change in the home. Maybe, like I've seen it changes in behavior when the oldest sibling of the family moves out to go to university or college or whatever, and animal that was bonded to them is now looking to bond to someone else, and maybe tries another animal in the home, and that animal just ain't having it. No, I would not say it's normal at all. And in fact, again, I come back to maybe there's an ailment in one of the other pets that's triggering anxiety in the pet who seems to be the aggressor. It is not simple, typically. And unfortunately, there's not many veterinary behaviorists out there, but any behaviorist will help. I'm not saying you have to go to a veterinary behaviorist, but the neat part with a veterinary behaviorist is you're going to have options to medication that you might need in the short run to help the animal over that. Oh, and CBD will not always work. I don't really listen. I listen to what my clients have to say, but sometimes CBD oil will just, like an Ambutol, I can't think of the word, make the dog lethargic as opposed to correct the behavior. So CBD has some uses, but it's not going to be, just don't get into trying to home medicate until you get some advice from either a certified behaviorist or a veterinary medical doctor.
That's good advice for your pets and for you humans. Appreciate it, Kevin. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Let us now say hello to Darren. Darren, how are you?
I'm doing great, thanks. Dr. Goodall, I have a question. I have a 13-year-old Jack Russell Yorkie mix, and he's been a carnivore for most of his life. Loves steak, of course. Who wouldn't? Sort of turns his nose up at most everything else he eats. He will eat it for a little bit, but then he'll get tired of it, and we have to go back to the steak again. The last few weeks, he's had real bad cases of diarrhea. Really struggles for a bowel movement. I went to my vet about 2 weeks ago, and she suggested some biome, high fiber food. So we fed it to him for a few days. Seemed to get better. His stools were getting a little, they weren't as soft. But then I also started making some homemade food, homemade chicken and hamburger with rice and pumpkin puree, and he's just gone back to the diarrhea again. I went in to pick up some biome from a different vet today, and the person that waited on me asked if he had an underlying condition such as like parasites or something. And I'm just wondering, obviously that would be a concern. My other vet didn't mention that, but I'm just wondering, I guess, perhaps because it's continuing, maybe I should go in and get him checked out now and see if there is something else going on inside his belly. Your thoughts?
Okay, so just for the listening audience, feeding steak or meat only isn't a balanced diet. I'm not criticizing you yourself, so we're clear.
No.
But just in general, it's never a bad idea. There's a book called Complete and Balanced by Dr. Hilary Watson. It's available on Amazon. It gives you recipes, because I'm not anti-home prepared diets at all. In fact, I'd argue, and we do it with our current puppy, a little bit of homemade diet to augment her balanced puppy kibble and what have you. For you specifically, yes, I think a reassessment is the way to go first. Number one, why? Well, your vet already knows your dog, kind of knows what he or she was thinking. Number two, yes, a fecal sample. Just to make sure, though, it's pretty unlikely that parasites would cause it. It's never a bad idea to eliminate that possibility. Just ask Robert Kennedy Jr. in the States with his parasite in his brain from eating uncooked or poorly cooked meat. Number three, depending on the dog's history of other medical ailments, it is possible that the balance of the diet is out of whack. The problem becomes, and I think your purees and all the other ideas are really good, but I do the same thing. Get online, get that book. It's really useful. It's the variety of diets that are balanced for dogs are in her book are amazing. Yes, she does sell a supplement to help balance out the minerals and vitamins that you would normally get in fresh food. The problem is a lot of our own food is not as balanced as we would like. Some of our vegetables and what have you are lacking in certain vitamins. So her product called the Balancer, I do recommend that. But coming back to your specific thing, it's not an emergency to get that visit. I don't want to sound over overly recommendational, whatever the word is. But if there's blood in the stool or mucus, then the sooner the better. The other reason I'm recommending you get your veterinarian involved is sometimes your dog has something that's infectious to you. And that has happened, especially if anyone in the home is immunocompromised, elderly, or very young that's exposed to the dog. So it's a better idea to get another opinion, like get a second visit. Write down what you're seeing, what time of day. I know it sounds silly, but sometimes the times of day that the animal's eliminating itself, what you've added at home to try and work with a homemade diet, and go that way. Boy, that's a long answer. I'm sorry.
Best of luck with that one. I appreciate the call, Darren. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We're going to take a break. Dr. Jeff is here on the other side. You're listening to The Veinotte Show. We're back in minutes. All right, welcome back. Dr. Jeff is here to answer your questions about your pets. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Dr. Jeff, let's go right to the phone lines, and we will say hello to Jeremy. Jeremy, how are you?
I'm good. How are you guys doing?
Your question for the doctor, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment, actually, about I caught the tail end of the last call, and I think it was related to aggression between two dogs that have been, cohabitating for quite some time. I had a similar experience where we ended up with two dogs from the same rescue, although we didn't adopt them right at the same time. The first dog was a gem, and we still have him. The second dog, we didn't get an accurate read on his personality or his disposition from the shelter that we got him from. And so when we got him home, we actually found that he was very possessive, aggressive, not just with food, but with toys, and eventually with people. And I became sort of, I was, in his mind, the alpha, but everybody else in the family after him was below him. And through the course of about 10 days and talking to a behavioral expert who also happened to be my brother, who's been doing protection training with dogs for 30 years, it became very clear to me, just as the doctor said, that there was definitely a high potential for danger to the family. So just hearing what he had, commented about, like I said, I only caught the tail end of it, but, in separating two dogs that are, in the moment, in the heat of a sorting out of hierarchy, it can be super dangerous. Yeah. And I was only lucky enough to have my own brother's guidance and had just, done some research on how to properly separate dogs safely. And if I hadn't, sort of had those two things come together, I'm sure I would have been injured. The end result for us was my family actually moved out of the house for 3 or 4 days while I looked after the dog, and we got agreement to send him back to the shelter south of the border. But just to comment on that. And the other thing was, I can't stress enough how on the money he is with recall. I had a Chesapeake Bay Retriever years ago who I had the fortunate, experience to have time with her for the first 10 months of her life. And I was able to call her off of a moose in the national park in Cape Breton. I couldn't call her off a ball because her drive sometimes was higher for retrieving, but anything else I could call her off from a distance. So, yeah, I think, like he said, the importance of being able to do that is it's tantamount to having a good relationship and a safe dog.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Cheers, guys.
Yeah, thanks.
Dr. Jeff, there's nothing better to a dog than a ball, right?
Oh, my gosh, I'm ever finding that out with this puppy dog. But, again, I think the caller's point on ball drive is accurate, too. And, again, get a behaviorist involved to help with your dog. Like at a park, if someone else is throwing a ball,
right,
and now you got two dogs going for the same ball, we're back into the other caller's commentary about aggression, what have you. So, yeah, really good advice.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Got an email here, Dr. Jeff, that centers around golden retrievers, and it reads, I'm wondering if it's worth getting the dog blood tested for cancer using tests like Onco K9. Certain breeds, the writer says, are highly susceptible to cancer, like golden retrievers. Are the tests accurate and reliable?
What a good question. And the problem is, what the I think the owner is referring to, and I've read of them, though no, the question would be, have I done it? No. It is a blood test that identifies, for the listening audience, it looks for something called cell-free DNA, The company, of course, will say that it is a very effective test. IDEX also has a cancer test that is now available. And to be blunt, I don't know if I completely like some of the data I'm reading. It is part of, I'll put it this way, it should or could form part of an annual reassessment of your dog's health. You know, the sad part is cancer can be up to, I've read some studies of 25%. I'd say it's more like 15 to 20% of dogs in their lifetime will develop cancer and or cancers of different types. So I'm avoiding the question because it's a very difficult question to answer. I probably should reread the information from OncoCan and see what they have to say about it all. All I can give you is a personal opinion, not professional. So years ago with one of my dogs, I did some blood work on her and her calcium level was elevated, and that's called hypercalcemia of malignancy indicator. So we ran additional tests, and it said that she was, if you will, clear of any problems. The trouble is she actually did end up dying or passing of a disorder called hemangiosarcoma, which is a cancer by definition. And so the point of the story is not all cancers will be picked up on these tests. Does that mean that every year you're going to have your dog ultrasounded and blood tested and everything else for all the types of cancers? I don't know about that. But in my dog's case, I was told it was not the onco test or anything like that, that she was clear. And unfortunately, when she got ill very quickly. And there are different forms of hemangiosarcoma. She got the liver version of it and literally just deteriorated almost overnight. And I have a feeling that these tests are going to give us false confidence in our diagnoses, and yet sometimes it's just the intuition of the clinician, of your veterinarian, and you knowing your dog. The other thing about these tests that just came to my mind is that you cannot tell the actual type of cancer that the dog has from that test. So like my dog, when her hypermalignancy variable was elevated, if her test had come back positive, it might have been more challenging to try and find out what cancer she actually had. It doesn't differentiate between the hemangios, the lymphomas, the osteosarcomas, histiocytic sarcomas, things like that, mammary gland carcinoma. There's a lot of discussion in the profession about do you neuter or spay earlier than later or later than earlier. That's a discussion with your veterinarian. But it's a very good question, and it is a developing area. I'm not anti it. I just don't know if I'm pro it yet. I hope that helps.
Dr. Jeff, as always, it's been a pleasure. Look forward to the pleasure of your company next month.
I hope so, guys. I really enjoy the time. Be kind to each other, everybody.
You bet.
Have a great day.
That is Dr. Jeff Goodall. You can find him at Sunnyview Animal Care Center, and very shortly you can catch him again on YouTube, Dr. Jeff, Maritime Vet, and I'm looking forward to watching those videos like you are as well. That's going to do it. I appreciate all of our guests for joining us today and sharing their knowledge with us. I learned something, particularly from this last segment, every time we do it. Thank you to all of you for dialing the numbers and joining the program and taking time out of your busy schedules to do so. I look forward to our open hours each and every day. Enduring gratitude to Vanessa Vandenez on the other side of the glass, who does outstanding work day in and day out. Don't forget, big day here for the show tomorrow. Todd Veinotte is coming back. He's going to occupy this chair tomorrow for the Friday edition. I'm looking forward to it. Vanessa's looking forward to it. I know Todd's looking forward to it. And I hope you are as well, and I hope you can join us tomorrow. It promises to be a very, very busy show and a good way to get off into the weekend. Until then, folks, get out there and enjoy Nova Scotia. If you can get through the snowflakes to do it, we're lucky to live in the province that we do. Be well, and remember, it's important, and I'll echo what Dr. Jeff just said, be kind to one another.